Welcome to the Horror Unmasked podcast,
where we unmask the monsters
and explore the lore.
I'm Amber.
And I'm Lily, and today we will be dissecting
Jigsaw and Spiral from the Book of Saw.
Game over.
Jigsaw. A man named Edgar is running away from the cops and towards a detonator-looking remote that he picked up as the cops surrounded him. He begs for Detective Halloran to listen to him, but Edgar is running out of time and pulls the trigger, which sets off a countdown in another location, starting another Jigsaw game. Halloran tells the cops to shoot at the trigger if Edgar pulls it, but one of the cops shoots him in the chest instead, leaving him in critical condition. The timer counts down to 0, setting off a buzzer, waking up 5 people in bucket helmets.
Very plankton-like.
Chained to the wall. A game has started, and the 5 players must give a small sacrifice of blood, or be cut up by the saw blades in the wall. 4 of the players make it, but the 5th never woke up during the buzzer and seemingly gets cut to shreds as the rest of them get pulled by their chains into another room that looks like a barn.
A bunch of people are outside at a park where we see the man who didn't make it through the first game hanging from a bridge. Coroners inspect the body and suspect a John Kramer copycat, as there is a puzzle piece shape missing from his skin, and there is a USB inside the wound, saying that the games have started again, in John Kramer's voice.
Mm-hmm.
The 4 players watch as Billy the Puppet comes out on his tricycle with a sign that says confess, and their chains start to shorten. A tape is found for Carly, who stole someone's purse and let the lady die because her inhaler was inside. The tape says that Carly has been injected by a lethal poison, to which the antidote is within one of 3 syringes that has dropped in front of them, along with one filled with acid and another placebo.
Carly must decide the right one based on the numbers etched into the barrel of the syringe, or everyone is hung. Carly finds the one with the numbers 353, the amount of money she stole from the woman that died. Scared that it's the syringe with the poison, Carly doesn't choose. The chains start to rise and everyone starts to hang until Ryan injects Carly with all 3 needles, causing her face to bubble and melt from the inside out as the rest of the players are released. Which feels like a cop-out.
Yeah.
It feels like a cop-out. That, like, just all 3 and then they were released. Ryan tries his luck and goes to go through the door, but his leg falls through the floorboards and gets trapped in between a bunch of wires that tighten around his leg. The other 2 players, Mitch and Anna, look under to find another tape which tells Ryan to pull the lever underneath the board to be set free.
The second victim's body is found in another public place, and the coroners perform another autopsy to find another jigsaw piece missing out of her tongue. Back at the game, a door opens, and Mitch and Anna go through to find a tape hanging from the ceiling of a silo. Anna pulls the tape down, causing the door to close, as grain falls into the room, along with very sharp objects, trapping Anna and Mitch in danger. The tape says that Ryan can save them if he pulls the lever, sacrificing his leg. Ryan hesitates, but ends up pulling the lever at what seems like the last second, saving Mitch and Anna. The 2 coroners, Eleanor and Logan, meet at a bar to talk about how the police suspect that the new copycat is them. Eleanor shows Logan why she looks guilty and brings him to a studio filled with past Jigsaw traps that Eleanor has collected. Another detective has followed them and takes pictures of everything through the window.
Back at the barn, Mitch finds his own tape where he is pulled by the leg and hung above a device that will tear him to shreds, unless he grabs a motorcycle brake at the bottom. In the past, Mitch had sold a bike with a faulty brake to John Kramer's nephew, which ended up killing him.
Yeah, there was no way out of that trap, bro.
There was no way out of that trap. Honestly, there was no way out of any of the traps, truly. To some degree.
Yeah.
Despite Mitch and Anna working to get past the test, Mitch is sucked in and spit out onto the other side, a pile of bloody mush.
Mm-hmm.
Literally ripped to ribbons.
Yeah.
The police dig up John Kramer's coffin to find Edgar's dead body inside, revealing that someone stole him from the hospital and murdered him. The police then go to the studio where all of Eleanor's collected artifacts are, discovering a hidden door on the inside. When they turn on the light, the third victim's body drops down, hanging from the ceiling, and as a bloody mess.
One of the detectives goes to accuse Logan of the crimes, who then tries to pin everything on Detective Halloran. Logan takes the detective to examine Edgar's body, finding the bullet in his chest to match Halloran's gun. Eleanor has found the farm and convinces Logan to go check out the location with her to find Jigsaw. Anna almost escapes, but is recaptured by a pig person. Both Ryan and Anna wake up in a room, chained by their ankle, as John Kramer reveals himself. We discover that Ryan has had a life filled with death and destruction that he caused, and Anna blamed her husband for killing their baby when it was really her. We also discover that someone mixed up the x-rays of Kramer's brain with someone else, causing his cancer to be diagnosed much later.
Spoiler warning, skip ahead. Logan and Eleanor show up at the barn along with Detective Halloran, following them. The police search Halloran's home and find 4 pieces of skin shaped like puzzle pieces of all the victims. Kramer gives Ryan and Anna a shotgun and says that the shell is their key to freedom. Anna picks up the gun, believing the only way out is to kill Ryan, and shoots him. The gun instead shoots Anna, and Ryan finds 2 keys inside the shell, now destroyed, that would have set them free. Now they will both die. Halloran finds Logan and Eleanor, but Eleanor runs away and Halloran gets knocked out. Both Halloran and Logan wake up in a trap with laser cutters locked around their neck, in the same room as Ryan and Anna. If both admit to the reason they deserve to die, then they both will live. Halloran presses a button to make Logan go first, as he admits to being the one to mess up Kramer's x-rays. The lasers inch closer, and Logan dies anyway.
The detective goes next, as he admits to tampering with evidence, taking bribes, and causing the deaths of innocent people. The laser turns off as the detective sees the burns on the ceiling from where the lasers touched, but only on his side. He looks down at Logan, who gets up off the ground and takes the laser collar off, which is filled with fake blood. Logan says that 10 years ago in the barn, a game was played. The game with Mitch, Carly, Anna, Ryan, and Logan, the guy who never woke up. Before Logan died from being cut up by the saw blades, Kramer saved him and realized they both made mistakes. Logan has recreated the same game 10 years later with 3 criminals from Halloran's failed cases, using themselves as the last 2. Halloran begs for his life as Logan reveals that Edgar was also one of Halloran's criminals that killed his wife, and that Logan was the one that shot him in the chest, but switched the bullets at the morgue. Logan was John's first apprentice and helped him work on many of the games before anyone else. Logan blames Halloran for many of the bodies that ended up on his table at the morgue, then turns the lasers back on, slicing his head into 8 different pieces, opening up like a demogorgon.
The end. Alrighty, so this movie was released October 27th, 2017. Directed by Michael and Peter Spierig.
Indeed.
Distributed by Lionsgate Film. I have their box office. What was their budget?
10 million.
Their box office was 104.2 million.
Mm-hmm.
So not insane.
No, it's pretty standard.
Pretty standard.
Well, like usual, these are only like an hour and a half long, so 92-minute runtime, and then a 32% on Rotten Tomatoes. So, we have a crap ton of actors.
Yeah.
With Tobin Bell as Jigsaw, Matt Passmore as Logan Nelson, Hannah Emily as Eleanor, Laura Vandervoort as Anna, Mandela Van Peebles as Mitch, Brittany Allen as Carly, Paul Bronstein as Ryan, and then Colum Keith Ronnie as Halloran. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Obviously, a lot of people don't like this movie.
What?
And a lot of people don't like the next movie either.
Huh?
So, most of the time, people are really pissed because the victims keep getting cut. Like, as in, it keeps getting... The victims and the torture scenes are B-plot to the forensic cop story. So it doesn't feel like people are spending as much time with the victims in the traps as all previous films usually focus on the victims in the traps, and the audience is subjected to like every moment of the torture. But obviously in this movie, you're not. Much of the horror in this is cut back. And then obviously the filmmakers also, they tried to make the special effects more intense. Not necessarily the gore, but even the idea that they tried to make Billy, the doll, feel more alive. And had his Jigsaw's voice echoing through like megaphones and stuff. It didn't make his instructions very clear because of it. A lot of people were upset about the doll itself because they didn't like the fact that they made the doll feel lifelike.
It was definitely bigger than the normal one.
Yeah, like they're used to the doll having like a lifeless expression. But in this one, he's got like lights in his eyes and he's actually like talking.
And like animatronic and whatever.
Yeah, so it doesn't feel...
When did this become Five Nights at Freddy's?
Yeah, exactly. So, let's see. So obviously the acting is fine. It's not like the best and it's not like the worst that could have happened.
Yeah. They worked with what they had.
Yeah, they were working with what was available to them. But a lot of people felt like there was something missing from the overall horror and set pieces and stuff, because there are a few scenes that are tense and a few moments that will cause you to flinch, but it's not enough. And while it's not being obviously hinted at, the twist at the end of the film made a lot of people upset because it kind of changed story stuff that the other movies have already set in place.
Yeah. It was just way too confusing. It was too much to like if you're gonna do a prequel, do a prequel.
Yeah.
Not this half prequel BS.
Yeah, it's...
Because it was about a game that happened 10 years ago, but it was also now in the present. So it was like, that was the part where they really messed up. Personally.
Yeah, because there's a lot of issues with the idea of the back and forth. It's the continuity issue of like, how the fuck are they finding these bodies? Like, how are the bodies being moved so quickly?
Immediately, yeah.
And it makes it harder for you to comprehend that it's like two different time periods until obviously the end when it's revealed. But
yeah,
the truth of the matter is that the Saw films themselves have not been about artistically sound filmmaking. They've never been about innovation. They have never been about slicing through to the director's hidden talents. They're a series of fun popcorn gore fests. made
Except
specifically
when, they tried to make it 3D.
Yeah. And
What the hell
specifically
was
for
that?
people who want to see these fun things. Like, it's a gore film. You're not going to go see Saw for, like, the plot.
No.
They did away with many of the things that had found their way into the sequels.
The plot is John Kramer.
Yeah, that's it.
That is the plot.
Yeah. And obviously there's the sped up cameras spinning and weird sound effects right before somebody dies and stuff like that. But most normal fans would notice that those things are missing from these movies. Is those like key visual elements and sound cues from the previous movies. The most important part of any Saw, though, is obviously the traps. For the simplicity of the iconic bathroom to the ridiculously complex shotgun carousel. The traps are what draw most moviegoers to see Saw.
Seesaw?
Yeah. The traps in this are interesting, so they're not too lackluster. Some are simple, some are complex, but every time somebody dies in one, it feels earned. And obviously the gore is no longer hot pink paint, as in the last one.
Thank goodness.
It's also not overused, like it's not overt, necessarily speaking, in every aspect. Like, obviously we have our key big gross out scenes, but yeah, it's compared to other ones, this film kind of tones it down more.
Yeah.
And then obviously instead of having our victims begin being trapped in some abandoned underground room, they're put in a well-lit barn where they can look outside the windows freely.
Yeah, I think that part was kind of ridiculous because you even start in like a metal tomb type thing and then
That
it opens
feels
up to a
right.
barn
Yeah.
and it's like, what?
Because that's also a problem, because it takes away from the isolated, trapped feeling of the
Yeah.
original films.
Yes.
There's like a hopelessness to it.
Mm-hmm.
Here it just looks too cinematic to actually be believable.
Right. And then they were like, oh, it's an old farm that Jill's family used to own. BS.
And like, I watched a video of the CGI in this film and it's rampant. There is so much fucking CGI in this movie. It's unreal. 90% of the traps are all CGI.
For real?
Yes. The spinning trap that the dude gets ribboned in is fake.
Yeah.
The leg slicing trap, the grain mill trap, the head trap, the
Bucket
demigorgon
head. Oh, that
head.
yeah, for sure.
Like, so much of it is fake.
Yeah.
And using CGI. So you can tell that they were using that as a crutch.
Oh, yeah.
Like, hardcore.
And you already know how we feel about that.
Yeah. Make them have more practical effects.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you got?
Well, for me, since Eleanor was a big ol' murderabilia fan, I decided to do a little bit of research on that. Because it's actually a very big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is murderabilia, do you ask?
I know many people on the different podcasts that I listen to, specifically the true crime ones, where they will have murderabilia. Or they will talk about murderabilia and like different types of it and from different killers. It's crazy.
So, murderabilia, it's, selling items that relate to murder. Specifically, most often serial killers.
Mm-hmm.
The more famous the killer, the pricier the item.
Yeah.
Super dark. I personally don't agree with murderabilia. I think it's weird. I think it's awful. And I think it's, I think it's weird. I don't think that people should have artifacts like that, personally. It just perpetuates the idea of, killers and, oh, this could be really valuable one day. And who does that really hurt? The victims and their families. It's weird. because nobody wants to see people selling or buying items that,
were made by the people that killed family members and loved ones.
say that, one of our family members was killed brutally by a famous serial killer. I think I would... just the idea of somebody coming and purchasing the thing that killed my loved one for so much money.
Well, it's okay. Well, here's a difference. Some murderabilia isn't like, you're not going to necessarily always get the killing implement, because those things
No. It's also just like
it's kept in the police evidence lockers.
Yeah,
stuff.
but it's also just things that belong to serial killers and things that
It's like Pogo the Clown.
Yeah.
Paintings of him, or paintings done by, or drawings done, those are very common.
Which is still weird, because you are perpetuating the idea that people should get profit off of horrible things. I don't know.
Okay, as an artist, I can see that there's a level, quote, 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 heavy quote, of separation. Because it's not like
art from the artist.
No, not art from
that...
the artist. No, I'm saying the art piece is not the thing that did the killing.
Oh,
like, it's not the murder weapon. It's not at the scene of the crime. It's a aftermath item, like when they were in jail.
Yeah.
So it's an idea that, like, it's not. This isn't a bone from one of the deceased, or the murder weapon that killed this individual person. This is his specific outfit or clothing item. Like, those, yes, those will be murderabilia items.
Yeah.
Specifically clothing. But 9 times out of 10, it's never anything that would have been taken directly from a crime scene, like by the police and by forensics and stuff like that. Because usually those things stay in like evidence lockers and stuff like that.
Yeah. Still weird, because I think if anybody, wants to go be a serial killer and they see that, their things can that's make money.
People chasing fame anywhere.
Yeah. So, anyway, I digress. The term was coined by a man named Andy Kahn, who has involvement with the Harris Law Enforcement Advisory Council, Parents of Murdered Children, and Texas EcoSearch. Anyway, murderabilia is a multi-million-dollar industry, and that's only scratching the surface.
Yeah.
According to Kahn, murderabilia is not harmless. He says that it's once again the victims who suffer the most. And he explains, the victims are the only people in the criminal justice system that are not there by choice. Crazy. So, murderabilia, huge number of items. Again, generalization is that it is anything directly related to serial killers or murderers. And that's not the only requirement. There's a ton of items sweating around out there, like paintings, drawings that we were talking about, like from Richard Ramirez and John Wayne Gacy. There's letters, autographs, clothing, pretty much the things that you might want from a celebrity.
Yeah. It's all pretty classic stuff.
There's also some weird stuff like hair and fingernail clippings from serial killers.
Yes.
Used deodorant. So that's...
Yeah.
There are also things like you can buy a bag of Reese's Pieces half-eaten by Charles Manson. A paper towel that he touched.
Yeah, it can be as simple as that. It'll be interesting whenever we eventually do the Scream series.
Yeah. There's even some skin scrapings off of the feet of someone called the Railway Killer. Angel Resendez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like most of the time murderabilia is black market dealings.
Yeah.
And if anything is done like in the light of day sort of situation, those are very specific objects.
For sure. I also have here the psychology of murderabilia. The psychology behind wanting to own something like that. So there's one thing to watch a documentary on a serial killer and understanding, you know, its history and the crime and whatever. And then it's a whole other thing to want their fingernail clippings. So a professor at Drew University, Scott Bond, he's a criminology professor, and he says it has to do with something called the talisman effect. So when an item embodies some of the characteristics and essence of the person who once owned it.
Yeah.
So it's a way to expose yourself to danger without actually being in danger.
Yeah, it sounds very similar. Weirdly enough, it's kind of reflecting
why people like horror and...
Well, yeah, it reflects my fucking thesis.
Oh, yeah.
Which is literally horror movies allow you to experiment with fear in a safe environment.
Yes, yeah. So you're just holding it and collecting it as opposed to actually encountering the serial killer or the murderer. So there's experts at Psychology Today who say that the idea of getting up close and personal with serial killer merch causes a feeling of getting close to the violence and death of things. But there might be more to it for some people. Some hold superstitious beliefs that there's something lucky about the items and that they're able to keep the harm and death they embody away from those who own them. So that's interesting. Obviously, families have protested the commercialization of their loved ones' murders.
Yeah.
Well, Andy Kahn has some very strong opinions on these things. There have been many stories of like families that have come in and protested things and it not doing anything. But Andy Kahn said that the impact of murderabilia on the victims is what motivated him to take a stand against the industry. And he said, "I can tell you there's nothing more nauseating and disgusting than to find out the person who murdered your loved ones has items being hawked by third parties for pure profit. It's like being gutted all over again by our criminal justice system." And I'm going to have to agree with that because these people selling these things are making profit off of out of people's pain.
Yeah, they're profiting off of the fame of death.
Yeah. And what does the family get? What do they get out of it? Nothing. When in reality, they should be the ones who get all of the money.
For it. Like, if it's going to go towards anybody, it should go towards them. It should go towards them.
Like, if you're going to do something like that, then all of the money should go back into the families of the victims.
You should talk to the family first and say, "Hey, I'm thinking of doing this, and all the proceeds are going to go to you guys."
Yeah.
As a form of, like, retribution.
And if they don't want it, like, if they don't want to profit off of
then
that,
maybe ask them for, a charity that they would be cool with you donating towards or something. But, like, again, all of it's usually black market.
Yeah. And then I have a list here of the most valuable and bizarre items of murderabilia. So, I have 10 different things here. The first one is Jeffrey Dahmer's signed paycheck. He's the Milwaukee cannibal, responsible for the murder and dismemberment of 17 boys until he was arrested in 1991. So he has a paycheck from April of 91 from the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory, and it's signed by Dahmer, and it's listed at $15,000 on a murderabilia site.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a bunch of things that are around that price. It's like in the tens of thousands. The next one is artwork by John Wayne Gacy.
Yep.
So the clown killer, he was active in the 70s and was responsible for killing at least 33 people. Spent 14 years in prison before he was executed in 94. And during that time, he would paint his pictures.
Yep.
And now many of his pictures have been destroyed, but
obviously there's a few that made it out.
Like there is one at when I went to
the thing in Vegas.
Why am I blanking on the name?
It's the Zach Bagans Museum.
Yes, when I went to Zach Bagans Museum, they did have a couple of his paintings in there.
Yeah.
Along with, like, I want to say Dahmer's glasses. No.
Like, I have no offense towards, like, possibly items being put in, like, a museum.
No, but they had to pay for it to be there.
But you still had to pay for it to be there.
Yeah. So things like that. Like they had stuff from Dahmer, they had stuff from Gacy, they had stuff from I want to say Lee Harvey Oswald, and even they also had stuff from Charles Manson, and then they also had stuff from Ted Bundy. So, yeah. But they have artwork by John Wayne Gacy as $20,000. There's also the Unabomber's hoodie and sunglasses.
Yeah.
So Ted Kaczynski,
Yes.
domestic terrorist, killed 3 people and injured much more with letter bombs in the late 20th century. In an online auction, a collection of Kaczynski's personal items were sold, including a typewriter, which went for $11,100, and his handwritten manifesto, which went for $17,500, and then his hoodie and sunglasses, which sold for $20,000.
Yeah.
Over $20,000. Crazy stuff. There's Albert Fish's autograph. So he's known as the Boogeyman and the Brooklyn Vampire. Albert Fish. He was convicted for the murder of 3 children in the early 20th century and suspected to have many more victims. In 2010, his autograph was bought online for $30,000. We have a letter from John Wilkes Booth. So in 1865, after the Confederate Army surrendered, Abraham Lincoln, our president, was assassinated at the Fort Cedar. Everybody should know this if you know anything about history. I think, who knows. So there was a letter signed by Booth that was sold for $65,000 in 2004. Then there's Al Capone's diamond pocket watch. Crazy. That already sounds expensive. So one of the most famous gangsters in America, Al Capone was known worldwide as a crime boss in the Prohibition era. And in an auction in 2017, his pocket watch sold for $84,000.
Not surprised.
No. We also have John Dillinger's pistol, who was declared the USA's first public enemy #1 during the Great Depression. He was eventually shot and killed by the FBI in Chicago in 1934. And his pistol was sold at an auction for $95,600. The prices just keep going up. So we also have Lee Harvey Oswald. He left his wedding band at home in 1963, the day that he would later be arrested for the assassination of JFK. In 2013, the ring was sold at an auction in Texas for $118,000.
Yeah.
Oh, this one is very interesting. It's Clyde Barrow from Bonnie and Clyde. His Colt .45 gun. Bonnie and Clyde kidnapped, murdered, and robbed their way across America in the 30s, and they were gunned down during an ambush in Louisiana. In 2012, a 1911 Army Colt .45 pistol that was removed from his body was auctioned for $240,000. And then our last one here is Jack Ruby's Colt Cobra revolver. So the pistol that Jack Ruby used to shoot Lee Harvey Oswald. Crazy how they're both in here.
Yeah.
Originally bought for $62.50. However, in March of 2008, it was sold at an auction in Las Vegas for an unknown amount in excess of $2 million. $2 million. Insane. So just to give you a little scope of how much this business is, it said it was in the millions. It's a multi-million-dollar business corporation, basically.
Yeah.
That honestly shouldn't really exist. And that's just my opinion. That's my opinion. You can feel differently. What's your opinion? Do you not care?
I mean, there's only so much you can do with people.
It's true.
Like,
It's true.
it's the equivalent. So I know that this is like a silly comparison, but it's the equivalent of like being chill with wearing Disney villains. You have to realize that like if they were real people and this was the real world, they're all murderers.
Then I would not be supporting them.
So there's a very big difference. I know that it's like the difference between a cartoon and a real life situation, but it's kind of like we clearly are comfortable walking around like wearing villains on our shirts.
Yeah.
And like toting around things that have like cartoon villains. So there's that weird dichotomy there that we're comfortable with like the fake shit
Yeah, but the second it's real, it's like,
No, don't support it.
No.
So
That's because,
in
TV, they're not actually hurting anyone. Like,
yeah. But the idea is like, you have to think like the sentiment of like wishing that world was real means that you're also wishing for all the evils of that world to be real too.
yeah. That's a very interesting distinction.
Which is shocking. Because sometimes people don't think about it. But yeah. There's a interesting nature to it. I understand that there's a level of it, but like I said, there's only so much you can do.
Mm-hmm.
There are always going to be bad people in the world, and there's going to always be people who want to profit off of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got some 1 stars?
I do. All right. I cannot think of one thing to say in its favor. The lead guy simply cannot act, but he thinks he's really good. Really hot stuff. Shows off his lack of talent. The gal who parades around shutting out her breasts obviously considers herself an oh-so-sexy beauty queen and highly desirable, but I've got news for her. Nothing new here. Lifeless, unimaginative, many holes plot, disjointed dialogue, long nothing at all happens periods, embarrassing delivery of lines, inappropriate facial expressions, even the bits of violence aren't scary. But it is good to see the flick end with a definite supposedly surprise-killing chop. I feel angry watching this. As reviewers often say, this is so many minutes of my life I'll never get back. Let's talk for a moment about the reviewers who raved about this movie, giving it an 8, 9, or 10. I checked the history of a few such reviewers and found that this was the only film they've reviewed, or one of just a few. This suggests to me that these reviewers must be the members of the cast or crew, or have friends or relatives who are. Such a shame. The honest reviewers quite rightfully slammed the movie, e.g. the person who awarded this motion picture 1 out of 10 and titled his review astronomically terrible, an insult to the franchise. Yes, I 100% agree. Bottom line, and I do mean bottom, avoid this rubbish. Have a nap, bake a cake, read a book, do some studying, wash the car, shampoo the dog. Happy viewing of some other movie.
I would agree.
Wow. I don't agree with the whole part.
Not all of it, but there are parts that I'm like, yeah.
I don't agree with the part where he's all the gal who parades around jetting her breasts out.
Yes, obviously that's very specific. That's very
and you
targeted.
talk about it for a couple sentences. Like that makes up the majority of your review here. So
yeah, that's a very targeted spot. But for the other things that yeah. I mean, again, this is the movie that the only thing that made us happy was the fact that we saw Tobin.
Yeah, this was the second he came on screen. We were like, oh.
We were like, oh, he's back.
He's back.
He's actually here.
It gave us comfort.
Yeah,
it did.
Because the rest of the movie is fucking confusing
weird to
and not
say
easy to follow.
Weird to say that obviously a murderer and a killer coming on the screen is like, comforting. But you, again, like we've said, we know that he
not
sticks
real.
to his rules and his laws, and you have at least a chance of getting out.
Mm-hmm. But he's also not real. Same concept as the Disney people.
Yeah.
We are fine toting and wearing stuff of serial killers in horror movies.
Right.
But not the real ones.
Not the real ones.
So it's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
It's why horror is a genre. Because there's morbid curiosity in all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And those who love it have the most.
Facts. Yeah, it's because, again, it is the watching something in a safe space. You're not going to get hurt.
Exactly.
And, you know that these villains are never going to hurt you. So you can grow to love them and understand them and know that they don't actually exist. So nothing like that will happen from them.
Yeah.
So.
Because I clearly remember when we started watching these movies, we went from being like more on the people's side to immediately on Tobin's side.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
We went from being, oh, come on. Like, just, they're like, just let them out. Like, they don't like deserve it. And then we're like, just fucking listen. Just listen to the man. He's telling you exactly what it is. Take him at his word. He has rules.
And he has motive too, really.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like,
no matter how twisted it is.
We all love 10. We've said it. 10 is really good. And it's the only one out of all of the Saw films that is rated that highly.
Yeah.
Like, it got an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, and everything else was like 30s and below.
So fingers the fucking crossed that 11
Is
will
just as good.
step in the same direction as 10.
Yeah.
10 got reviewed so well.
So highly. And it was directed by Kevin Grutert. So, like, he did the worst ones, but then he also turned around and did the best one.
He realized that the fans want to know and see
Tobin.
Yeah. They want to see John Kramer
and they want
experiencing the stuff.
And they want more focus on the traps themselves and the people getting out. I mean, granted, half of that movie is, like, not about the traps, but it is Tobin, and you get to watch him go through like, the reasons why he is the way he is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It, weirdly enough, makes me think about, again, I'm fucking referencing Disney, the films where we're getting, like, Maleficent.
Yeah.
Like, we fall in love with the character
Mm-hmm.
because we're getting backstory and we're getting more information. So the point is like, the era of getting backstories of different characters is so much more important and relevant than just, like, reiterating the same things over and over again.
And I mean, why do you think, you know, the police created a whole department trying to discover why murderers do what they do?
Exactly.
You just want to understand them a little more.
Because they
Even
are
if they
fascinating.
are just crazy and...
Because they're fascinating, but fucked up.
Yeah.
But it's like, why do you think that? Why do you feel that way?
Mm-hmm.
Because we are nothing but curious creatures.
Yep. All right. I have a second one. The awfulness of Saw 5, 6, and 7 are one to take notice to, but the sure arrogance of the attempt at revamping the franchise that should have died after Saw 3 is one to take notice. How to not make a successful franchise, but the Saw franchise refuses to call it quits and just die. This movie manages to be both slow and awful, kind of like one of the traps that makes no sense in the movie. And seriously, I've never felt a movie that was so long and drawn out about people I didn't care for and a plot so bizarre, even for a Saw movie. And the twist that it is 10 years after John's death, but the twist that the traps he placed are from 10 years ago, but then the movie contradicts itself by saying after that game he survived, they built a legacy together, so the timeline makes no sense. And also there were no hints that it was 10 years ago with the traps, because one of the traps is a flat screen TV, and it really no one would notice that. All in all, there are very few good moments and even fewer moments to reward fans of the franchise, and unlikable characters and slow plot make a great movie. Heed my advice, don't go see this movie, and as for Saw, just stop.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so it makes me think about the fact that this movie retroactively tries to erase a lot of stuff from the previous films. Because it's the mentality of Logan being like, I was his first apprentice and I worked on many of the games with him. But, like, no, you weren't.
Right.
No, the fuck you weren't. And you weren't the only one either, even though you act like you were the only one and you were the first one. No. We already know that technically, if you went by time frame, Lawrence was the first. Well, okay. Amanda was the first, then Lawrence, then Hoffman.
I think this confuses so many people of the timeline, because in the reviews when I was looking at, nobody really had it correct.
Yeah.
And I don't even think we have it correct.
No, I think we do have it correct. Amanda was the first because she went through her trap, because she's the one who set up she's the one who helped set
Cecil.
up. Mm-hmm.
He helped Cecil with the
No, I'm saying she's the one who helped set up Lawrence's trap.
She did.
She helped set up that trap. Then later...
Yes, he was the doctor, but first, before any of it, Logan was the one who fucked up the x-rays. So that's why I think Logan really was the first one, because then he tried to put Logan in the trap. And honestly, in this trap, Kramer looks pretty healthy. Like, at this point, he hasn't been through all of the things yet. So
You know what this movie should have been instead? It should have been that game.
That's what I was saying. Like,
yeah, I agree. It should have been that game.
If you're gonna make a prequel, make a prequel. Don't try to make it in the now and then.
Because to say that
backtrack, it's just super confusing.
He's the first. It confuses. Yeah, it confuses everything, because in our brains, Amanda's the first.
But it really is Logan, which is why I'm like,
because we never saw him through any of the other films. There was no hint of it.
Nope.
We always thought it was like Lawrence
And
was the
reason,
one who fucked up
yeah.
on the stuff.
And the reason I still think that Logan is the first is because I don't even think John really cared about himself at this point, because also his nephew's killer is here, and I think he'd want to get revenge on him first and foremost than anybody.
Yeah.
So.
Because there are aspects of the traps that don't feel survivable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but then again, if it's a first,
it also makes sense that it's a first because it is at Jill's barn. Like,
so
it's a place he already knew.
Is if this was the very first trap that he ever created,
it kind of makes sense that it's not really
survivable because he's testing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but we still get to see like the machinations of how Jigsaw is with
but
his
at the
rules.
same time, like the spiral trap, that was a little too elaborate for seeming what should have been put together by junkyard pieces, as if we were talking about that last time.
Yeah,
like, I mean, it's very high tech.
Well, you have to think about it in the idea that it's a bunch of farm equipment that's been broken down and turned into is essentially what a lot of that is. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just there's a lot of weirdness with it.
And that's why, again, he also messed up with the whole Logan not waking up in the first thing, because he's still figuring out the kinks and like the dosages that people might need in order to knock them out and wake them up.
Again, fucking don't call it Jigsaw. This is supposed to be an origin. Like, the way that this would be titled is the equivalent of saying Maleficent. Mm-hmm. You're saying Jigsaw. Mm-hmm. Why is it not that origin?
Right.
Why is it not that 10 years ago game? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why does it have to constantly be flipping back and forth between the two?
Right. Because I would have loved more about how his x-rays were swapped and how this was 10 years ago and how it was the first trap, and John's experiment, like more about John and how he experiments like setting up his first traps and things like that.
Because think about it. In the grand scheme of how we watch these movies, this would have been the first one we would have watched. Yeah. We would have watched this one, then saw 10. Yep. And 10 is a great addition if this one would have been that prequel. Yeah. Missed opportunities.
Very, very. Come on, Bozeman. No, this was Michael and Peter Spierig. We have no idea who these people are.
They hopped in and tried to change everything.
Everything. Well, you flopped.
Hard.
Very hard.
Also, the one movie that has the most CGI in it. Yeah. Even the fucking number 10 had less CGI.
Well, that's all I got.
So that means we're moving on to the next one. Which is Spiral from the Book of Saw.
A woman's purse gets stolen at a carnival, so a man chases after the thief, leading him down into some underground tunnels, where he is attacked by a pig person. Right off the fucking bat. The man wakes up in a trap on the train tracks, where he is bound by his tongue and must jump off the ladder to free himself and lose his tongue, or get hit by the train. The man doesn't jump, and the train hits him, causing a bloody mess. At the police station, Detective Zeke Banks is assigned a partner, William Shank, in order to be more of a team player, when in reality he works alone because no one on the force is trustworthy. We learn that Banks' dad, Marcus Banks, used to be the chief, and that 12 years ago, Banks turned in a dirty cop, causing the force to turn on him. Shank says that the reason he joined the force was because of Banks' dad. Then the two get called in to investigate the train incident. The police believe that the man who was killed is homeless until Banks sees that the victim has a Fitbit and is married.
Back at the station, Banks gets a package of a USB with a video of a voice saying that the man that was killed was an officer.
That voice, by the way, so stupid. It's so stupid. I cannot stand it.
Yeah, it's not Jigsaw.
No.
And puppet later, but whatever.
Right.
And that there will be more games in an attempt to reform the department. Banks recognizes the place in the video to be the courthouse, where the team finds another package with the detective's tongue inside and his badge number, revealing him to be Banks's friend on the force, Detective Boz. Banks goes home to find his dad inside his apartment, where the two have a conversation showing that they have a strained relationship despite living in the same building and having worked at the same place. Two detectives who are against Banks do some investigating without him, finding the man that Boz was chasing down the night of the carnival, a drug addict who stays in a rundown factory. Detective Fitch goes to the factory to find the drug addict, but instead is knocked out by a pig person and wakes up in a trap.
Banks goes to his dad's apartment because the two were going to meet up for dinner, but Marcus isn't home. We get a flashback to when Banks turned in the dirty cop and Marcus got angry with Banks instead of supporting him. At the station, Banks gets yet another package with another USB, showing a video of a truck under a bridge and a voice saying that until they come clean, many more will die. The police go to the bridge to find another package with fingers inside and another badge belonging to Fitch. In a flashback, we see that Banks requested backup, to which Fitch ignored, causing Banks to get shot. The police find Fitch's body. That's weird, Fitch's. And we see that in his trap, Fitch had to remove his fingers or be electrocuted. Fitch could not finish the task in time and died.
Banks and Shank pay a visit to the dirty cop that Banks turned in, Officer Pete Dunleavy, at a church holding an AA meeting. We get a flashback to when Banks and Dunleavy work together. Dunleavy is at a man's house asking him about an incident he witnessed where a cop threw someone off of a building, saying he'll testify. Dunleavy shoots the man and stages the scene to make it look like the man drew first, causing Banks to turn Dunleavy in. Banks checks on his dad, who is still not home. The next day, Shanks doesn't show for work, and Banks gets another box. Inside is a pig puppet with the human skin of William Shank and a paint jar from a craft store that Banks used to go to as a kid with his dad. The police go to the store, which has now been turned into a butcher shop, and find a body that has been completely skinned.
Back at the station, Chief Garza gets a text from Marcus about a cold case file she should check out downstairs that might help. Meanwhile, Banks checks out a scene where another cop escaped an attack by a pig person, but realizes that this is just a distraction based on a letter the killer sent that said, "While you're looking for other bodies to drop, I'll take your head," meaning the head of the department, Garza. The chief goes downstairs when the door behind her shuts and she is knocked out by toxic gas, only to wake up in a trap where she must paralyze herself or be suffocated by hot, melting wax. Banks rushes to the station and down to the cold cases, but it is too late, and he finds Garza dead, her head underneath a pile of wax. Banks asks to lock down the precinct and to look at the cameras for the evidence room, but the footage of Garza had been wiped. Banks believes that Dunleavy might be responsible, but another officer points the finger at Marcus, Banks' dad.
Spoiler warning, skip ahead. Banks goes back to the church to find Dunleavy, but gets attacked by a pig person. When we see Marcus go inside of a building where he finds a bunch of spirals and jigsaw tools, until he is attacked by a pig person.
So many pig people.
Mm-hmm. Banks wakes up to find himself cuffed to a pipe. He sees a bobby pin on the ground and picks the lock to the cuffs, freeing himself. Banks finds his old partner Dunleavy chained by his hands, hanging from the ceiling in a trap, as well as a tape. Banks must unlock Dunleavy before shards of glass fly at him and kill him. Banks finds the key and tries to unlock Dunleavy, but it's too late. His old partner is dead.
Banks continues through the building to find William Shank, who reveals that the witness Dunleavy killed all those years ago was Shank's father, who saw the whole situation go down. Shank had worked his entire life to get assigned to Banks' department and to be his partner, and now asked him to join his cause and fix a broken department. Shank calls the cops about a crazy person firing a gun into the building and leads Banks to his dad. Shank texted Marcus through Banks' phone in order to lure him to the building and into a trap where he will bleed out unless Marcus shoots a target to release him. The police arrive as Banks shoots the target to release his dad. Shank tries to leave, and Banks chases after him. The two fight until the cops barge into the room, setting off a wire that causes Marcus to be lifted into the air again. Bright lights come from behind him, and a gun barrel appears out of Marcus's arm, making him look like the armed person firing in the building. The cops gun Marcus down in front of Banks, and William Shank gets away. Game over.
The end. Alrighty, so this one is the weirdest release date because it is not very in alignment with most other release dates. So this was released May 14th, 2021.
Correct.
We have the director of Darren Lynn Bozeman, so we have him back.
He's back, yeah.
Distributed by Lionsgate and Lionsgate Films. So I, again, have their box office. What is their budget?
You're going to be shocked as shit. It has the highest budget of any of the Saw films with a $20 million budget.
Ooh.
So that box office
The box office is only $40.6 million.
So we have the highest budget and the lowest box office together in one film.
That is insane. How bad that is.
I mean, it makes sense based on the actors that they had, why the budget was so high, to be honest, as well.
Yeah, but also they don't even have they don't have Tobin.
No. He's listed as one of the actors, but he's not in it.
It's literally because it's a picture. There's like a picture of him.
Yeah.
Because they reference it. Like, this shouldn't have even been a Saw film or even in the franchise.
No, not at all.
You could have done anything else. Like, even the figure. Like, not once is it fully... It's only mentioned in the precinct that it could be a Jigsaw copycat.
Yeah.
If they would have said any other killer, it would have never been a part of the franchise.
It's true.
It's fucking weird.
Or happened in any other city, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
But we do have our main actors, Chris Rock, which was so weird, as Zeke Banks. We have Samuel L. Jackson as Marcus Banks. So father-son duo. Honestly, kind of iconic, despite the film itself.
If they were in anything else.
Yeah, I feel like it would work really well if they weren't.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't this. We have Max Minghella as William Shank, and then Marisol Nichols as Angie Garza.
Okay. So we have Bozeman back, directing Spiral.
Yes.
So, okay. He has pre-existing experience with this franchise. With the body mangling, limb wrecking, jaw splitting traps of the Saw films.
Indeed.
And here's what's interesting. They were talking about the fact that the traps, they work the way that we say they work. So, case in point. An example from one of the previous films is, you remember the rack from Saw 3. That's the one where the man is in there and his arms are outstretched and it begins to twist.
To twist his limbs, yeah.
So, as is the way of Saw and its very practical effects, the mechanism really works. So, they have to do safety checks with all of their stuff. It's hooked to gears and a motor, and it turns 1 degree a second until it would completely snap your limbs. So, safety protocols. The stunt guy gets in the trap, and immediately he's going safety, safety, safety. And they have to stop it.
Oh, wow.
Because it was turning his arm and his neck the same way that they said it would turn. So...
Wait, which trap was this?
It's the one that the kid was in that killed the guy's son, where his body slowly started to twist.
No, I'm not talking about that
cracked.
one. What in this one is?
Just in reference to, this is just in reference to the traps themselves. This is just an example.
Oh, okay.
That they are made the way that they are meant to work.
That's insane. I did not know that.
Yeah, this is an example of it. So... As always, with an elaborate trap, the start was a simple concept. A guy wakes up and his tongue is in a vice. and he has to leap off a ladder to rip his tongue out.
Absolutely not.
So he explains. So Bozeman explains, there's a lot of things and planning that go into this execution. That started with a guy that we knew that he lied under oath. So we went, okay, it's got to do something with his mouth. And then they go through iterations of like, whether they stick his lips together. No, because that wouldn't kill him. And they've already done stitched lips before.
Well, ripping out his tongue wouldn't kill him either.
So they say, what if he has to rip his tongue out? And they're like, okay, what if he has to have pliers and rip out his tongue? Yeah, but that's not visual. That's not visceral enough. Okay, what if he has to jump off something and rip his tongue out?
Ugh.
It was originally written as fish hooks.
Oh.
That he would have fish hooks in his tongue, but then the stunt guys and the engineers go, well, if you jump off a ladder with fish hooks, it will just tear your tongue.
Yeah.
It won't rip it out.
Correct.
So then they started doing weight tests. What would it take to actually tear it out? So then it
Your
came
whole
to
body force.
a vice. And then they did the tests.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it rip your throat out as well? Where would it dislodge? Could you survive it? If you were to walk into my office on any given day, the amount of disgusting pictures on my wall to see what would really happen is insane.
Yeah.
He's Bozeman's like, I'm on every FBI watch list. I'm 100% going to jail because of my Google search history. And it's actually already led to embarrassing moments for his assistant, who is Amanda DeSouza. When he was researching the tongue clamp trap, he was in the production meeting with special effects guys, and he told her, can you go grab his computer? So she goes in and she gets his computer, and as she opens up the computer, it's a ton of tongues in BDSM things.
Oh.
And he's like, I can explain.
Right.
I can explain. I have to look up weird things for my job.
Yeah.
So there's like a lot of weirdness.
I'm going to tell you now, like, just for the stuff that I've had to look up for lore and like other things based on these things, like I feel the same way.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
like,
same. I'm on a watch list.
Yeah.
I've looked up so many murders and
Yeah.
like how to kill things with like because of these movies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a list.
And we're on it.
Oh yeah.
Just for your pleasure.
So obviously the audio and video quality perspective of this movie is impressive. The 4K transfers beautifully, has a great visual display. The visual heights and lows of the film, from the vivid styling colors and the pitch blacks, and have terrifying darkness. And of course the blood and gore is crystal clear. So there obviously was a lot behind
Although
the
I
scenes
couldn't
camera
really
stuff.
tell when they opened the box with the tongue that it was a tongue.
Exactly. So like, yes, it was visually, film wise, beautifully done.
Yes.
But there's a lot that was missing. So like, even for this, so this next section I have here is a lot about the wardrobe and different inspirations and things like that. So a lot of the aesthetic in this movie is very much a departure from the previous films, as they wanted a fresh take on it. And once they decided that, they actually chose to go with more of a film noir style to the movie. So they used a lot of dark tones as well as a lot of muted earth tones. They stuck to burgundies, dark teals.
No, that makes sense, because when I think about this movie, I think of like brick.
Yes.
And lots of browns and earth stuff.
And they tried to keep the patterns very classic. Chris Rock's character has ties that have very traditional 50s patterns on them.
I definitely picked that up.
They did knit ties as well to get a bit of texture. Used a lot of browns and ochres to keep the palette in that mid-century style. The associate creative director, Kevin Barley, introduced inspiration from the movie A Touch of Evil. It's an Orson Welles movie with Charlton Heston and Janet Leigh, and it's set on the border between Mexico and the United States. It's a black and white, but in terms of being hot and gritty, that was one that they could use, particularly for the character of Boz, who you see at the beginning of the movie. So they went with, how can they get it to make it look more like a noir film? So for Boz, they did a straw fedora. They had him even wearing a pink linen blazer. And obviously there was some interest with that. So for the suits that many of the characters wear, specifically even Chris Rock's character, they went with something that was just off the rack.
Okay.
Because it had to be something that was obviously washable fabric, because doing research with detectives and police officers, they need their clothes to be really functional. Even if they're wearing a suit, there's a chance that if they go to a crime scene,
it's gonna get dirty.
Blood or vomit on it. So Chris was like, people have seen me in a suit, in a nice ass suit. This is not this. He's a cop, paid this salary.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like, make me real. Like, I'm going through the shit. Do not make me. I'm getting a divorce.
Right.
Like, I'm divorced. I've got all this. Like, don't make me pristine.
Yeah.
So they paid attention to the cut of it. It purposefully wasn't tailored. The makeup, which was interesting because the makeup would be doing the blood that's actually on the actors. Then the special effects department does spurting blood and pooled blood. There are also prosthetic department. They use blood as well. The makeup department might have to consider whether the actors are going to have to put the blood in their mouths. And for us as the visual, the creative directors, it's the idea of what is it made of and if it's going to wash out of the clothing. What was really interesting about this movie and a lot of horror movies is that obviously they have to keep continuity. So they have to track the blood and the wounds. So it's a really compressed period of time, and a lot of the action takes place over one day.
Yeah.
Of course, with shooting out of sequence, they had to establish what Zeke looked like after having endured different traps and rescuing different people.
You can tell that he goes a little nuts by the end of it.
Yeah. Anticipating everything that was going to happen to his clothes beforehand. So on day one, they were establishing one of his final looks that they had to think, okay, this would happen, set where all the cuts would be and where the blood would go. And weeks later, when they would shoot those scenes, they had to make sure that it would track. So there's a lot of, again, we've talked about this before in other films, that there's a lot of continuity that has to get kept up. And special effects makeup is like the number one thing that costume design and special effects have to be consistent.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to have clothing that's covered in blood and like specific cuts and shit.
There are too many times where like blood is involved in a film and you go like scene by scene and it's on the people's clothing and it'll be different in like every shot, and it's like,
or you'll like notice one shot they have gloves, next shot they don't have gloves.
Yeah.
Next shot that they had like this cut was on this arm, now it's on the other. Like there's obviously going to be some level of difficulty.
I've never understood how, because as an actor, I'm very good at remembering what is done to my body and what side. So I'm shocked that actors themselves don't like speak up and be like, no, it was on this side.
I mean, you also have to think, it depends on how long things are done. I mean, even The Wizard of Oz. You can literally watch the movie and see her hair grow long and short.
Yeah.
And there are scenes where she doesn't have the red slippers on, but like a black pair of Mary Jane's.
Yeah.
So continuity is a big thing. But yeah, that's what I got.
All right. Well, I don't have a whole lot because
there's only so much that you can look up with the same kind of content that we've had in other episodes.
So for this last one, I know I've already discussed cops / army veterans turned serial killers. For this one, it's just like the worst police officers ever. So just, it's not that they're serial killers, it's just that they are corrupt.
Extremely corrupt.
Extremely corrupt in different ways other than just killing.
Yeah.
So the first grouping I have, because it's either one cop or like a group of them that come from the same department, so kind of in the same vein as this movie.
Yeah.
So the first grouping is Kenneth Bowen, Robert Falcon, Robert Gisevius, and Anthony Villavasso. So during Hurricane Katrina,
I remember that.
yeah, it really affected New Orleans, as we all know. There was a lot of physical damage, but it also resulted in a lot of lawlessness.
Yes.
As people focused on more rescue efforts than anything else. So this resulted in the Danziger Bridge incident in 2005. So Bowen, Falcon, Gisevius, and Villavasso were members of the New Orleans Police Department, and they fired at 6 people on the bridge. 4 of them were injured, and then 2 of them, James Brissett and Ronald Madison, they were killed. The victims had done nothing at all.
They were just on the bridge.
It was racially motivated.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, all of the victims were black, and the police officers pleaded guilty to the shooting, and they were all given prison sentences.
Good.
So, yeah.
That's kind of how it should work.
Yes.
Society.
Right.
That's kind of how it should work.
You hear that?
Is you do something fucked up, and then you do consequences.
We have the next pair is Stephen Caracappa and Louis Eppolito. So, the mafia.
Oh, okay.
They have ties in law enforcement. And that's proven in lots of things.
So many things.
But specifically, these 2 men were NYPD detectives who worked closely with the 5 families of New York City.
Oh, shit.
So, their work with the mafia began in the 80s, and they were in countless incidents tied to organized crime. They took bribes, they committed kidnappings, dealt narcotics, carried out multiple hits, and then the authorities started cracking down on the mafia in the 90s.
Yeah.
So Caracappa and Eppolito, they went to Las Vegas. Because...
So essentially they were like hitmen for the mafia.
Yeah.
At the same time of them being
police officers.
Yes.
So they fled to Las Vegas, but then were arrested in 2005 and sentenced to life in prison before they both passed away in the 2010s. So, wild.
Yeah.
We have another grouping. This one is Greg Jr., Jason Smith, and Arthur Tesler. So in 2006, 92-year-old Catherine Johnston was killed by these officers. They had set up a drug raid at Johnston's house by falsifying an affidavit and obtaining a no-knock warrant. So,
yeah.
According to them, an informant had revealed that heavy narcotics were being dealt from Johnston's home. A 92-year-old woman, right?
Because she's a narcotics dealer.
Yeah. So they broke in at 7 a.m, which prompted her to defend herself. So they returned by firing on her, killing her. And then in a panic, they planted drugs in her house and coerced an informant into lying for them.
I have a dead-ass feeling that they heard word they mistook this information. But they probably heard people talking about the fact that there was narcotics in an area, got the wrong address, and were looking for narcotics for themselves and not for, because they planted narcotics in there.
Yeah. How'd you get that?
Yeah. How'd you get that?
Where'd you get that from?
Where'd you get that?
But yeah, eventually their story fell apart, and then they were each given sentences ranging from 5 to 10 years. Personally, not enough time.
Not enough time.
Not enough.
It's almost like progressively you're noticing that the police are not paying for their crimes.
Correct.
Like they should be.
Right. Our next officer is just one. Joseph, how the fuck do you even pronounce that last name? Miedzianowski. Joseph Miedzianowski.
That's going to be as good as we're going to get.
And I honestly think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So he was an officer in Chicago, and there was a time when he was praised for how for his work in recovering illegal contraband. No one knew that he was super corrupt. However, he worked with various Chicago organizations and committed a slew of crimes, like arming gang members and distributing narcotics.
Yeah, shocker as to how good he was.
Right.
Because he was busting the people who were going against him.
Right. He was also known to sell out his own kind and betray undercover officers to curious gang affiliates.
That's so fucked up.
He was eventually charged with racketeering and drug conspiracy and sentenced to life in prison, and then made news in 2022 as the homicide convictions of Juan and Rosendo Hernandez were successfully overturned following proof that Medianowski had gotten a detective to frame them. So,
Good, he got life in prison.
yeah.
Which is what he deserves. If you fuck up and you wrongfully do things,
Right.
that's what you deserve.
So, the next guy, his name is Stacy Kuhn. They were an LAPD sergeant, and in 1991, there was a motorist named Rodney King. Yep. I think we all know where this is going.
Yeah.
Made history. He was pulled over on a California highway. He was pulled over by California Highway Patrol for speeding. 5 LAPD officers responded and beat King viciously with their batons and then they tased him.
Why do 5 of you need to be all in one space when it's one person?
Sergeant Kuhn was serving as the commanding officer. The attack was filmed and disseminated in the media, leading to widespread outrage.
Yeah.
Kuhn and the other officers were tried, but infamously acquitted of all charges.
Yeah, which is a big bag of bullshit.
That resulted in the LA riots of 92. So,
yeah.
yes.
Because
Rodney King was a black man, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to realize that, like, that 9 times out of 10, he was speeding. That should have been a routine traffic stop.
Yep.
1 cop.
1.
Why were there 5?
2 at most if they're like shadowing.
Yeah. And that's that's specifically if they're shadowing. But other than that, like, no, this, like, clearly shiest was happening. And for them to just get away with it is infuriating.
Yeah. I mean, Kuhn was found guilty in federal court years later, permitting an unlawful assault and sentenced to 2.5 years. That's it.
A little too late and not enough. It should have been life. We are still hunting down people who were part of Hitler's regime and finding people who were involved with the concentration camps and putting them in jail for life.
Which is crazy because they don't have that much longer.
No, they don't care. You're an old person, you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life. Like, and you can't afford that.
Right.
For the fucking assholes.
Right. All right, so I have a couple more. The next one is Daniel Holtzclaw. He's an officer in Oklahoma, the Oklahoma City Police Department. He committed many acts of assault. His trial began in 2015, and it saw the disgraced officer facing a whopping 36 charges. 13 women accused him of sexual violence and blackmail. And then Holtzclaw would run background checks on the women and would coerce them into performing lewd acts in exchange for his silence.
Of course.
So he really used his power in order to make these women
do whatever he wanted.
He was eventually convicted of 18 charges, and he was sentenced to 263 years in prison.
Good.
And then was thrown into Oklahoma's Lexington Assessment and Reception Center. So, that sounds like good punishment to me.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
Thankfully, nothing can...
Someone actually got punished for the bullshit that they pulled?
I mean, nothing can ever give those women back what he took from them, but...
No.
But... At least he's in prison for life.
Exactly.
And can't do it to anyone else.
Exactly.
The last one I have is John Burge. He served time in the U.S. Army and then became a police officer who eventually worked his way up to commander. So for much of his time in the force, he ran what became to be known as the Midnight Crew.
Mm.
This was a group of police officers who actively abused suspects with painful methods and coerced them into making confessions. So, according to The Guardian, Burge and his Midnight Crew were responsible for at least 118 instances of police brutality. And then was fired in 93 following an unsuccessful trial launched by one of his victims. But he wouldn't face lawful punishment until 2010 when he was hit with obstruction of justice and perjury convictions and sentenced to 4.5 years in prison.
Yeah.
That's it. Absolutely nuts. All of this makes me want to put out there that there are ways to prevent these things and to hold police accountable.
Yes.
And so I just want to plug in this article I found from Knowledge Hub. It's an anti-corruption resource center, and it just is a 10-page PDF about, anti-corruption and police reform and what it is, types of it, how you can help, what you can do.
Yeah, we can link it in the show description.
Yeah, but it just, the summary, I'm going to just give the first couple sentences of it. It says, addressing police corruption is essential to maintain public order and the rule of law, to support the legitimacy of the state, and to maintain or restore public trust in democratic processes and institutions. Since the considerable powers entrusted to law enforcement officers can easily be manipulated for private gain or political purposes, there are many linkages between police corruption and human right abuses that can further undermine internal security and abet abuses of civil and political rights. So,
yeah,
it's very important. And obviously, we mostly see police corruption and brutality within the Black community. And that was very rampant a couple years ago.
And still is.
And still is. It's just, we
like
kind
I said,
of
we'll make sure to link
things
this
about it. Like,
we'll link this in the show description.
It's like things happen and then we get all crazy about it, and then time passes and we aren't, doing as much. It takes things.
It's still happening in the background, and we're still there's still people who are fighting in the background. It's just the next big thing kind of became the header of time currently. So
right.
Yeah.
Right. There's things happening every day.
Yeah.
So just be aware. I mean, so many corporations are corrupt, and we feel helpless about it, but there are things you can do if you just do your research, and one person turns to 10 to 100 to everybody working on it. So it's just talking about it and telling people about it and letting your friends and family know and getting it out there. That's what it takes. So
all right. So do you want to do rankings first, or do you want to do the 1 stars first?
I'm going to do 1 stars first. So I have a few.
Okay.
The first one is Chris Rock with his pathetic overacting. Dialogue delivery was like puns and jokes for him. What's with the Jigsaw's voice like a 5-year-old kid pranking someone? Saw franchise finished with the last movie. This is just trash. But yeah, I absolutely agree with the Jigsaw voice thing.
Yeah, I don't. So we didn't mention it necessarily speaking, but in the movie, there's this instead of Billy, the puppet that
or John Kramer's voice,
there's this childish,
tiny pig. I mean,
well, it's like the voice is very childish, and then the pig, it's like a pig. Marionette.
Yeah.
And it's like dressed like a cop. Obviously, there's the joke implied.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know. It's just not, it's not good. It's just not good. It's not the same. This is not a Saw movie.
Correct. Yeah. Anyway, next one. As a huge fan of the Saw series, one who usually rates 10, even on the not-so-great episodes in the series, I honestly can't believe I'm rating a spin-off of Saw so low. You sure not the last one? But this movie was such an offense toward the word Saw in the title that I can't even rate it a 2 out of 10. This movie isn't really considered a part of the Saw series. It's not about the same killer, and barely relates to the original movies at all. At most, this is a sad attempt for a spin-off that just happens on the same universe. But of course, that isn't going to stop people from counting it as a Saw movie when they talk about the franchise. Sadly, it is poorly written. The story is so boring that I could barely keep myself focused in it and kept having to remind myself that I'm watching a movie, and not just any movie, but literally one related to my favorite horror franchise of all time. Story is about the cops themselves more than it is about the killer, which honestly has been most of them recently.
It's been most of the ones towards the back half of the Saw franchise, yes.
It is very predictable. The traps and their stories are as minimal as it can get. It's true. I was literally writing the summary and I was skipping through like half of it.
Yeah.
Even the worst trap in the worst out of the other movies had more intelligence than all of the traps in this movie combined. Literally, they just threw in a few traps for the sake of it, and even the gore wasn't good. And the twist, which is supposed to be the best part of every Saw movie, was so lame and predictable and boring that you could barely even notice there was a twist there. At the end of the day, what I hate most about this movie is that it's so shameful to the Saw title that it's going to ruin the reputation of the whole franchise because people will include it in, even though it doesn't belong.
Yeah.
And it will be in my way every time I try to explain to new people why they think the Saw franchise is genius.
I mean, it makes me think about, so my favorite franchise, I have two, which is the Scream franchise and the Halloween franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, the third Halloween film shouldn't be in there at all, technically, because the only reference to Halloween is on the movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's a movie in the background on a TV, and that's the only reason why it's in there. It has
Weird.
absolutely nothing to do with the franchise, and yet is still considered part of the franchise, which is fucking wild. So it's a similar concept to this one. They both have a very similar, like, a picture of John Kramer and Jigsaw's mentioned momentarily. And that's all that it took to put it in that franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree with a lot of the stuff in that review. I definitely agree that literally it could have been in any franchise.
Yeah.
It
could have been just a standalone horror movie.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, this third one ended it off with a bang. Chris, stick with comedy. You are horrible. Sammy, you will star in just about anything. You are depthless, unemotional, almost robotic. Going to start passing on anything with your name attached. I have, as of yet, finished this movie. Have tried 5 times to sit down, and it's just too Yawnsville to continue. Interesting use of that. A horror film that is literally so boring you could fall asleep to. I think it's time to put this franchise to bed. If this is the best you can come up with, 2 thumbs down. Save your time and energy. Though, if you're suffering from insomnia, this could be the go-to sleep pick you need to get you to Slumberland. I like how we have Yawnsville and Slumberland.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You stop at one before you get to the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was so mean about Samuel L. Jackson. I say do not disrespect that man's name. Thank you. The only reason I like this movie is because he's in it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's hard to like this movie.
Yeah.
It's just hard to like it. Like, the only reason why I moderately would like the other one is the Jigsaw one is because of Tobin Bell, and that's it. Like, there's nothing compelling about any of the characters.
Not at all. Because
No.
even Chris Rock's character at the beginning just shows that he's kind of an asshole when he's talking about wives and women the way he does.
Yeah.
Because he's
Especially
basically
when
like,
his wife left him for a legit reason.
yeah, he was basically like, well, your marriage is going to fail because white women will cheat on you once they realize that you're a cop who has to work all the time.
And literally was insinuating, oh, she's at yoga? Or she's at whatever, her Pilates or whatever.
Oh, you think she's at yoga? Oh, you think she's having a girls' night? No.
Yeah.
She's cheating on you.
Like, literally trying to force someone into, like, putting distrust on their significant other without proof.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, don't make someone paranoid about their significant other. Like, unless that person is doing, like, legit shady shit, like, questionable things, like, you should trust your partner. Yeah. Throughout the entire film, you're watching Chris Rock's character just get dogged.
Yeah.
Like, everyone at the precinct hates him. When in reality, you would think in a real world situation, in a society that has a correct form of policing, he would be praised and be seen as someone to strive to be like.
Yeah. But instead, the whole force turned against him. And we're like, oh, well, you turned in one of our friends.
Which only proves that everyone else is corrupt.
Yeah. Like, even if you join the force and you want to change it, like...
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's get on to these rankings.
Yeah.
I'm finally ready to be done with this Saw series. I'm ready.
Me too. Me too. All right.
All right, we'll start from the bottom.
Yes.
Okay. So at number 10 for me is Spiral.
I have Jigsaw.
Jigsaw is my number 9.
Spiral is my number 9, so we flopped.
Yeah.
For me, Jigsaw is all the way at the bottom because, oh my god, like we were just saying, the plot makes no sense. It's super confusing. Like, it's not a Saw movie.
You already know the reason why I put Jigsaw as 9. Why it's not at the bottom.
Because Tobin Bell is actually in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
whereas Spiral, he is not.
Well, for me, I like Samuel Jackson a little more. So.
Well, damn.
Yeah. Sorry, Tobin. I love you, though. I just want to give you a hug, you big old grandpa. He is the horror genre's grandpa.
Yeah. I'd agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I put Spiral as below that because I think at least the traps kind of made sense. I mean, no, they weren't escapable really, but I kind of enjoyed that part and then the people that were in it. But yeah,
so you liked Spiral a little bit more than
little
Jigsaw.
bit more than Jigsaw.
Gotcha.
But Jigsaw was a hot fucking mess.
Yeah, the last two are hot effing messes.
Like, it makes no sense. And the fact that reviews, I was reading the reviews and they were even getting the plot wrong. I was just sitting here like, okay, well, clearly nobody gets this movie.
Yeah.
So, bottom.
All right. So my number 8 is Saw 6.
Mine is Saw 4.
I'm not surprised.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with... So 6 still was heavily on the Hoffman train.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, can we just not anymore?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. For me, 4, I just didn't... It's
You're going to be shocked where I have 4.
It's probably higher up. I mean, while it does have the info brought in about Jill and his background a little more, it is where he dies, like he's dead at this point, and I'm kind of just like, no.
I agree.
No. I didn't really care about Detective
Strom.
No. Strom was later.
Oh, Matthews.
Mm-mm.
No? Fuck. Which detective is this one?
I'm looking.
Riggs. Yes.
That whole thing was weird. It didn't really feel like he needed to be there at all, really. Like, I don't understand why the entire story revolved around him.
Yeah.
I didn't care about the first trap that was in it with the hair and the stuff, and then the second one about the rapist who recorded things. How did he even get out of jail that early?
Well,
it's
pretty common, unfortunately.
Crazy. And then the whole spike, like, it didn't have...
Yeah.
None of it was really Saw-like for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. So, number 7, Saw 5.
I had Saw 6. Yeah, so right before that.
Yeah.
Hoffman was really getting on my nerves.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
I just don't care.
I mean, like, there was just so much going on, and it was just kind of like, man.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't like that they stepped away from the Saw storyline and went into the more police detective route.
And again, that's kind of my thing about 4 as well.
Yeah.
Because it was focused...
That was the start of it. That was the start of them going that route.
Because they had focused more on
Yeah.
Riggs than
Yeah.
anything. So, yeah. 6.
So number 6, Saw 2.
Oh, okay. I have Saw 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really know what I need to say about that.
I forgot what Saw 2 was about.
You forget?
Yeah.
Saw 2 was the house.
Yes. Again, Saw 2. Focusing in on, again, number 1, Amanda being thrown back into a trap.
Yeah.
2, again, the hyper focus on the
Cop thing.
Like, it's an interesting concept, like the idea that they're trapped inside a house and all this kind of stuff. But I feel like there just could have been so much more. It could have just been done better.
Okay.
It could have been more elaborate. And I feel like it would have been more successful.
I think so too. I feel like there should have been more trap-like stuff.
Yes, I agree. More rooms, more traps. If you're in a house, like, make every space have something.
Not just the basement be about the one guy that captured everybody and that was the only real trap that was there.
And he was not meant to survive to begin with. So
right.
Now, I will say my next 2, 5 and 4 together.
Mm-hmm.
So in number 5, the 5th spot is Saw 4.
Okay.
And in the 4th spot, it's Saw 3.
Okay.
Now, the only reason why those 2 are in those spots is because I enjoyed the narrative concept that they were directly happening at the same time.
I'll agree with that.
I enjoyed the fact I like Saw 3 more than Saw 4 because of the fact that it focused on Riggs.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked how 3 was closer to a traditional Saw film.
Mm-hmm.
It's also where we get the head explosion trap.
Yeah.
And it, again, is more in the lines of the traditional Saw films. But I think it's a fascinating concept that 3 and 4 were happening at the same time.
Oh, that is definitely an interesting concept.
Yeah.
I love that a lot.
I would love to see, like, a movie and its sequel, like, doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're getting 2 different perspectives that are happening at the same time, and I think it's fascinating.
For sure. I think thinking of it that way makes me kind of want to move for a little bit higher than
Where you have it.
maybe.
And again, that's the only reason why that they have the 4th and 5th space.
Because it reveals that they were happening at the same time. That was a really cool twist.
Yeah.
Blew my mind.
Yeah. It's an interesting narrative device that I am shocked not more people use.
Yeah. I have in my 5th and 6th?
5th and 4.
5th and 4th. I have...
So in your 5th place.
Yeah.
What is it?
I got Saw.
Oh, the first Saw
I got Saw.
is in your 5th place.
Yeah.
Huh. I am more surprised than I thought I'd be.
And then Saw 2.
Saw 2 is in your 3rd spot. In your 4th spot.
4th.
In your 4th spot.
I got Saw and Saw 2.
So
Everyone says...
So you didn't really enjoy Saw as much?
Mm-mm. I get that it's the first one, but Tobin Bell is not even in it.
Yeah. Not in the traditional sense.
No, he's on the ground.
And you don't really know that until the end.
Yeah. So I didn't really care about Lawrence Gordon and his family.
Yeah.
Nothing really made me like him, especially since he was cheating on his family, basically. And then, I don't know, it just is a little boring because how much can you really do in a room? And that's the entire movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get that. I mean, the whole first traps, like the jaw trap, and then seeing like a couple of the other traps that were happening were interesting and definitely sets up the franchise, but it's not.
You have others that are better for you.
Yeah. And then Saw 2 is, again, you were saying it's just one room and it's like meh. So
yeah, it's not it's not built out enough.
Mm-hmm.
The house isn't. There needs to be more to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it almost devolves immediately into just people dying, and it's them all attacking each other. It's too free roam.
Yeah,
I think is what it is. It's too free roam.
And they very obviously could have gotten out. Like, be real.
But yeah. All right. So my 3rd spot.
Yeah.
Is Saw 7.
Saw 3D.
Yes.
Mine too.
And that's personally because of Lawrence Gordon.
Yeah, he came back. I also...
And that's why I enjoyed it, is because there was this like devilish change. And there was so much potential.
Yeah.
So much potential.
To do a story on him.
Instead,
we like the potential, not really the movie.
Instead, we got Jigsaw and Spiral.
Yeah.
Yep. That's what we got. That's what we got.
I mean, I definitely also thought that the author concept is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's
a fascinating story.
The fact that all of these people were really going through traumatic experiences, and then it's kind of like murderabilia.
Yes.
It's kind of like that. And then this other person is profiting off of that instead of the actual victims. So the fact that Jigsaw knew that and put him into that situation was crazy.
I mean, I love the fact that like I love my favorite moment from that movie is when he's walking through the corridors and he sees the book and he opens it and it's signed. And I just love the flashback of like just fucking John Kramer being like, you know, lying is a bad thing, right?
Yep. At the book.
Like literally he's right. He's right there.
Yep.
And it's like, you don't know how close you were to danger.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just talked to like a wild beast. And you don't even know it until like way later after he's already set up all of this mentality towards you. Like it's really good.
It's crazy. So like, you know, you haven't gone through the traps.
Oh yeah.
The person who sets up the traps, no, you haven't gone through the traps. But you don't know that he's the person that sets up the traps.
You don't know he knows.
So it's so
and his like, interesting how you describe the trap. Like, thanks for giving me ideas for your own traps.
Yeah. Everything but the pink blood was alright.
Yeah, and again,
the fact that some of the traps could have been a little better.
The difference is, I can mildly forgive it for the pink blood because of the technology they were trying to use.
Yeah.
They should have done what most people do with 3D, and they should have filmed it normal and then transitioned it. And instead, they didn't do that.
Yeah.
And you know, I forgive it for that because it was trying to be experimental on the filming type instead of the story. So, also, it's the one where we finally killed Hoffman.
Yes.
Hoffman is dead.
Yes.
And that is why.
That is also what puts this
Hoffman and Gordon
so high for me. Hoffman is dead, and now we can move on with our fucking lives because he was in way too much. Way too much.
Way too much, and he wasn't even good.
I'm sorry, Hostess Mandalore, but you probably get a lot of hate.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. All right, so my number 2 spot is Saw.
Yeah.
And that's just because it's the original. It's the first one. It's the thing that spurred the rest of it. It's the inspiration.
Yeah.
And that's why.
Cool. Mine is Saw 3. I just thought I really loved the twist. For me, it actually got me.
Yes.
The fact that Jeff and Lynn were married.
Yes.
And that he was going through all of these traps and then found her at the end.
Yes, and this was Amanda's test.
It was Amanda's test, and she was in more of it. I love Amanda.
Failed.
And she failed. And it was also John. Like, you get more of him in this, and it's just...
Unfortunately, we lose him.
Yeah.
But
I think it's crazy how it was the idea of, like, we're going to put you in this trap, and if he dies, so do you. So keep him alive.
It's a cool concept.
Like, it was really fascinating to me. So I really enjoyed 3. And then knowing later that it was all happening at the same time as 4 just made it even better for me. So.
And then obviously, in the number 1 mother effing spot. Is Saw 10.
Saw 10. Yeah.
Because that shit was good.
It was really
good. The visual effects.
Yes.
The storyline was fascinating. The traps were
so
wild
good.
And visceral.
Yeah.
We got to have John.
In like all of it.
The whole thing.
And Amanda.
Yeah.
It was just really well executed.
Movie.
It was really well executed. And you really get to... We've
Fucking
said this so many times.
Cross for 11, my dude, but still.
This is the best movie they've had. So it's crazy that it took 10 movies to finally get here.
Again, if you want to watch any of the Saw films in the franchise, Seriously, the only ones you need to watch is the first one and the most recent one. See the original, the one that started it all,
Yeah.
so that you have the basis as to what it was that started it. Then watch 10.
Correct.
You can kind of skip everything in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, here's what I'll say. You have 4 movies. Watch the first one, the third, and the fourth, so that you have that interesting storyline.
But then you might as well watch the second if you're going to do that.
So 5 movies.
Yep.
So the first 4
Mm-hmm. And 10.
and the last one.
Yep. That's all you need. Because then Hoffman's introduced and I don't care.
And then it just digresses into a myriad of backtracks in the story.
Yep.
So at that point, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So
what were your favorite traps?
let me think. Okay. Not favorite necessarily speaking.
Yeah, but like,
But
I wouldn't say favorite. Never mind.
the
not
one
favorite.
that I remember and the one that's always stuck, now that I've actually watched the movies, I know what it is now. And it's the rack trap
Yeah.
with the kid whose body got turned
Yeah.
because of my memory of it from a child. That and the fucking same movie, the fucking head explosion thing, where it was the shotgun shells around the neck.
Yeah.
Ooh, and again, actually being able to see how the jaw trap works.
Yeah.
Because even when Hoffman was dealing with it, we didn't really see all of it happen.
Right.
So to actually see that one work was interesting.
For me, just because it got me so bad, wasn't...
I think I know which one you're going to say.
What?
No, go.
Okay.
I think I know.
It actually is in Saw 10.
I knew it.
And it's where this girl really has to saw
Yes!
her leg
I knew you were
off.
gonna say that.
Oh my god.
Because it's visceral.
It's so...
The skin pulling,
Yeah.
and you can see it pulling on like the extra. Oh yeah.
And then she just gets decapitated because she can't
Yo.
finish it. But her leg comes off.
Her leg
it
comes off.
and it falls
Very
to the ground.
clean.
And then she has to like take the bone marrow and like suck it out of her leg. And then she can't do it, so she just gets decapitated. And then her guts come out because they use her guts as like
rope.
And I'm just like, I can't because honestly,
That one's a good one.
That's the trap where like I think most body part is lost.
Yes.
Like off of someone. Other than, like that doesn't kill them.
Yes.
Like you're still alive for that shit.
Because
And
even the
no
other
thank
chick
you.
who cut her arm off, like comparative to your arm to your leg, that is not.
That, yeah.
This bitch cut it off mid
mid-thigh.
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 Ugh.
That's a lot.
Ugh.
That's a lot. And you just watch it just like fall over.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I just can't. I would never be able to see my leg like that.
Nope. Take me out.
Yeah.
Take me out.
Yeah.
Take me out. And also the idea of having to take this long ass needle and then shove it into your own little stump to pull out bone. No. That makes my leg
nauseous.
hurts.
That makes me so nauseous.
Now my leg feels weird. Like my knee.
Right.
My knee now feels
I want to
weird.
wiggle my okay, this is why I say like I'm so grateful for every little body part and every organ and everything. Like this yes, it helps with body dysmorphia and like self-consciousness, but it is also like I am so appreciative.
Hyper-awareness.
Yeah, I'm so appreciative all the time that I have every finger, that I have every toe, that I have all my limbs, that they work properly.
You can
and
feel
like
them and you can
feel
move
them.
them.
Yeah.
Again, she's the one who doesn't like body horror stuff.
I hate it. It's the worst. It's the worst. Yeah, that's why Texas Chainsaw Massacre took me out. He literally sawed her in half with a chainsaw from her back.
Whereas I'm over here like, oh, cool.
No. Like it makes all of my nerves like
go on
like,
end.
Yeah, they like shoot off, and it's I can't imagine ever being like kidnapped and tortured that way. Like I hope never. Never.
All right. This is it.
That was it. That was the end of the Saw
The
franchise.
fifth and final episode. We did it.
Finally.
So that means next week is our session 9, our chit chat. Finally, we're having a chit chat, my guys. And we're going to talk and tell some spookums stories.
Hell yeah.
So look forward to that. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Send us an email at horrorunmasked@gmail.com. Follow us at Instagram and Twitter at Horror Unmasked. Listen to us on Spotify, iTunes at Horror Unmasked Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Horror Unmasked Podcast. And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to ask. Will you fear?
Or will you fear not?